The Chinese have announced that they're going to go to the moon. In fact, they will probably beat the United States. NASA last year admitted that their time frame is behind the Chinese time frame.
The Chinese declared their intention to travel to the moon. They will most likely defeat the USA. In reality, NASA acknowledged last year that it was trailing China in terms of latency. Did you know that the remarkable finding of the moon by China was revealed by renowned physician Michio Kaku? You did really hear correctly. In this video, Michio Kaku unveils the amazing lunar finding made by China and takes you on a never-before-seen space adventure. What would be the surprising finding of this month? How will it alter the way we think about the universe? After people of color land on the moon, a station will be constructed around it. Join us as we explore the cosmos in search of the answers to these pressing issues and the fascinating secrets that lie at the moon's core. A wonderful journey is ahead of you. Strange spring, water source on the moon. The moon, our nearest space neighbor, has long been a mystery, but recent unexpected findings by Chinese scientists have started to address some of the most important ones. China sent a robotic spacecraft onto the large, dark region of the moon that is visible from Earth just 2 years ago. Ocean of Storms, or Oceanus Procellarum, is the name given to this area. The spacecraft, designated Chang'e Feite, touched down close to Mount Lammer, a sizable peak on the moon. What gives you the most satisfaction? A spaceship returned to Earth with samples it had taken from the moon for the first time in almost 50 years. This was last experienced during the Soviet invasion in 1976. Many scientists think that when the moon originated around 4 billion years ago, the heat caused all of the water to evaporate. But that proved not to be the case. On the moon, there is actually a lot of water that has frozen into ice. Usually, this ice may be found near the moon's poles, which are always dark. NASA intends to deploy astronauts here because future missions will benefit from having access to these waters. Let's investigate this remarkable phenomena. Chang'e Feite sees more than just water. Almost 60 ounces of rock and soil samples from the moon were brought back, and they were abundant in uncommon minerals such helium-3 and Chang'e Feite. However, things don't stop there. Before landing back on Earth, Chang'e Feite utilized onboard devices to conduct measurements, which suggested that water could exist on the moon's surface. Then, one must ask, where is the source of this water? There may be invisible water on the moon, according to some scientists, while others think it may have been carried there by a star. According to reports from Chinese and European probes, the answer to this important topic may be discovered in lunar samples taken from the moon's northwest by China's Chang'e Feite mission. This type has tiny glass beads in a variety of colors that resemble tiny pearls. How then did they arrive there? Maybe the heat from meteorites striking the moon formed them. What gives you the most satisfaction? There are water lines on these little cups. Indeed, you are correct. Water exists on the moon. It has been demonstrated by scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences that for every ton of lunar soil, there are around 2,000 kilograms of water in the crystals. The interesting thing is that because the moon has been struck by meteorites throughout its existence, these glass beads may be found all across the moon, from the equator to the poles. Although the majority of the water on the moon is thought to consist of hydroxyl groups, there are still molecules of water present. It is estimated that the glass beads may contain as much as 270 billion tons of water trapped within. NASA calculated that the moon's Arctic crater held about 600 million tons of ice in 2010, but this latest finding indicates that the crater has a bigger lake. The finest aspect: we could never have predicted the entire new depth of existence that this water may offer. The lunar samples that Chang'e Feite brought back are not as large as those that the US Apollo program or Soviet robotic missions brought back. According to recent studies, the meteorite catastrophe that occurred 2 billion years ago, which is comparable to the events that took out the dinosaurs 68 million years ago, is when the glass holding these pearls was produced. How can water enter moon crystals? One may wonder. As it happens, our sun may be to blame for this. The favorable impact of hydrogen atoms from the solar wind is thought to infiltrate the glass beads and mix with oxygen, according to scientists. The beads emit some hydrogen when heated by the sun, and this hydrogen is crucial to the moon's water cycle. Thus, these glass beads are more than simply water. They also regulate the moon's orbit. The challenge of identifying a place is about to alter with this revelation. This led scientists to explore the possibility that, in long-term missions distant from Earth, water on the moon may support human life. The results were thoroughly evaluated by a study team from the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Geology and Geophysics. Are they able to locate it? In the Chang'e Feite text, there are indications of open water. Scientists use spectral reflectance, a measurement of a material's ability to reflect sunlight, to detect H2O molecules. The effects are extensive. According to Matt Siegler, a senior scientist at the Planetary Science Institute in Tucson, Arizona, there could be more water on the moon than previously believed. Compared to the far-off space the Apollo astronauts reported upon their return in 1969, this is a far cry. The notion that the moon was a parched wasteland started to disintegrate. Chandrayaan-1 of the Indian Space Research Organization discovered evidence of hydration on the sun's surface. However, it's unclear if this is water or hydroxyl, a chemical that resembles gutter cleaner. Subsequent studies, according to NASA postdoctoral researcher Kathy Honor, revealed the presence of ice in shadow craters close to the moon's poles. Water molecules trapped in glass beads and minerals created considerable skepticism and brain-scratching when scientists re-examined the original Apollo findings. Is this water in Houston indeed from the moon or the Earth? What took place? NASA is preparing an announcement for 1 month before China's lunar lander Chang'e Feite finds water in the solar system. They asserted that the moon of the sun contained water. They were all perched at a height of 45,000 feet. You did really hear correctly. NASA employs the Stratospheric Infrared Observatory to collect water molecule signals at certain wavelengths. These results raise the hopeful possibility that there may be more water than previously believed on the lunar surface, and that it may be longer than the ice at the poles. While all earlier research indicated the presence of water, China's latest lunar landing was the true game-changer. Geologist Matt Siegler notes that in order to calculate the amount of water present, the resultant spectral reflectance data needs to be properly corrected for temperature. Determining the object's temperature at extended distances is a hurdle, though. This is what distinguishes Chang'e Feite's mission as unique. By touching the sun, it can measure temperature precisely and remove ambiguity. However, don't expect to see lakes or bubbling streams on the moon just yet. Ironically, Chang'e Feite discovered a little pool of water in an area known as Oceanus Procellarum that was concealed in the lunar surface. Scientists speculate that this water could have originated from the sun's solar wind, which is a stream of radioactive particles. When the oxygen in the rocks and soil of the moon is struck by the solar wind, which is heavy in hydrogen atoms, water is created. Remarkably, additional water is visible in the same region of lunar rocks, suggesting the existence of another unidentified water source, uncommon moon crystal. However, the tale is not over yet. Another astounding finding by scientists, a unique solar system that could be able to power the entire planet. Rivaling the National Aeronautics and Space Administration of the United States, the China National Space Administration has garnered media attention for its achievements in space exploration. A station was constructed, several missions were launched, and China produced significant discoveries, the most recent of which startled the scientific community. What is Mikio Kaku's moon idea then? 2020 saw the discovery of crystals in lunar basalt grains that were composed of a substance that science had never before discovered, and that had essential elements for the nuclear fusion that drives our galaxy's sun and stars. The China National Space Administration and the China Atomic Energy Agency declared after the leak that China's Chang'e Feite robot mission had found feldspar, a new lunar mineral. When analyzing samples from the lunar surface, researchers from the Beijing Institute of Uranium Geology made the discovery. China is now one of the few nations to have found fresh food on the moon, along with the US and the former USSR. This is because more than 1.7 kilograms of lunar samples were successfully returned to Earth by the first lunar sample return mission since 1970. The last flourish. The Beijing Institute of Uranium Geology named the new moon after the moon goddess Chang'e from Chinese mythology. Chang'e Feite is the name given to it. Let's now discuss the Chang'e Feite mission robot, which is responsible for this remarkable finding. 46 years after its previous lunar material collection, it departed from Hainan province and returned to Earth carrying 1,731 grams of lunar rocks and dirt. This mission, one of China's most difficult to date, is an exhilarating 23-day trip. Following their successful retrieval, the lunar samples were split up into 21 groups and distributed to researchers in 13 different labs for use in 31 different research projects. With this accomplishment, China gained recognition in space exploration history, joining the United States and the former Soviet Union as the third nation to find lunar data. Numerous ministries have contributed to the research of lunar structures, including the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Ministry of Education, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences. No longer alive? Even though the small pebbles discovered on the moon are just slightly larger than a human hair, they provide scientists with opportunities that they never would have thought possible. One remarkable element found in crystals created during the moon's volcanism around 1.2 billion years ago is helium-3. Michio Kaku was obliged to break the news to the public, since it was such a huge surprise. Star rock and debris structure that will return to Earth in the following several hours. Chinese ground troops await the landing of an unmanned mission. You might wonder what makes helium-3 so unique. The Chang'e Feite lunar research mission returned over 140,000 lunar particles, and among them, scientists discovered remnants of helium-3, an uncommon and possibly volatile material. Despite being uncommon on Earth, this peculiar form of helium is thought to be abundant on the moon because it was directly deposited there thousands of years ago by the solar wind. What relevance does this discovery have? Helium-3 nuclear fusion is thought to be a fuel source that has the potential to completely transform how clean, efficient energy is produced and used on Earth. Helium-3 has long been regarded by scientists as a potential nuclear fuel. Just how a star acquires energy, nuclear fusion happens when two light atoms join at high temperatures to generate a heavier atom. Here's a brief Physics 101 refresher. However, we haven't been able to replicate the strong response that generates more energy than the planet needs thus far. What, therefore, makes helium-3 such a fitting companion for this marvel? Hel-3 is distinct from other products since it uses less energy and generates less electricity, making it a clean and safe energy source. Nuclear fission is being used in our nuclear power plants to generate both energy and power. This complicates the handling of waste containing uranium, plutonium, and other elements. In the long run, we will have a safer, more effective, and cleaner method of producing nuclear energy if we can convert fission into fusion using helium-3 energy. Although competition for lunar resources has increased with the discovery of helium-3, we still need a dependable generator to fully use its potential. China and the United States are among the several nations and commercial businesses that have expressed interest in mining helium-3 on the moon. Chang'e Feite's discovery of fresh helium-3 reserves on the moon will intensify competition for lunar resources, bringing us closer to a future in which lunar material resources are real, not just science fiction. Not only do we see our heavenly neighbors when we gaze at the moon, but we also witness the pure energy light of our future. This element has the ability to provide nuclear fusion reactors with energy that we do not yet understand on Earth, according to scientists. But wait till you learn about the Chang'e 6 mission, which is scheduled for 2024 and aims to gather the first samples of the moon's dark side, which would permanently obscure our view of this planet. It is too soon to estimate the cost of this oil resource, but it will undoubtedly be expensive. However, there is a problem. More moon crystals will be required, particularly if we wish to create strong fusion reactors. Doesn't that sound like a brand new location film? It gets much more intriguing, though, so hold on. You might be surprised to learn that, for an estimated $3 billion per ton, 25 tons of helium-3, the equivalent of a parking lot, could power the whole United States for a year. The finding may spark space rivalry between nations and businesses looking to extract helium-3 from the moon. Exposing bizarre stuff. Recall Chang'e 4, China's first lunar rover. Being the first spacecraft to arrive on the western side of the moon confers a coveted honor. Launched on December 7, 2018, Chang'e 4 touched down on January 3, 2019. Additionally, Chang'e 4 discovered a remarkable finding. Let's now examine 2019. On July 28, the rover issued the notification in anticipation of its daily withdrawal to stay away from the sun's middle. In one of the images, a scientist spots an odd material that looks like gel and has an odd color. The lunar robot's sleep schedule was promptly abandoned by the rover crew, who then started an intriguing investigation. Scientists were happy enough with their discoveries to decide to send the rover back to investigate these unusual items. Thus, they switched the rover's focus from investigating tiny craters to oddly colored things. The rover examines the item and its surroundings with its visible and near-infrared spectrometer to ascertain its composition. However, the enigma surrounding this vibrant object remains in the lunar environment. Leftovers from a golden star and moon collision. Though we don't know for sure now, this will occupy specialists for some time. Around the planet, there was excitement and optimism when the rover's visible and near-infrared spectrometer discovered the odd object. Though we'd want to know more, the fact that the VNIS analysis's findings are still proprietary and that no images of the exchanged goods are available fuels further rumors. Scientific consensus. This gel will be molten glass that is glossy instead of a gel. It is believed that the glassy substance originated when meteorites struck the moon, leaving behind a glossy surface. Although there are notable outliers, Maheshanand, an Earth scientist at the Open University in the United Kingdom, concurs with this viewpoint. He pointed out that it is challenging to determine the product's specific composition because there is a dearth of information available. Anand did, however, affirm that the substance may be a kind of glass. It might be a highly significant finding if this glass substance is indeed lurking under the moon's surface, especially if it includes ice. This theory was supported by a second Syracuse University physician who speculated that the substance may be moon dust, which is heated by the hitting atmosphere and eventually transforms into glass. After all, meteorites are one of the few factors that may alter the lunar surface, especially in light of the detrimental impacts of other geological processes that we observe on Earth, including wind, waves, and electricity. He uses the glass rock known as trinitite, which was created by the eruption's high temperature at the location of New Mexico's first volcano, to explain this. He thought that when meteors struck the moon, something like this might happen. It's interesting to note that odd-colored patches on the moon have been observed before. Lunar regolith, a gray dust, covers much of the lunar surface. However, two explorers, Harrison Schmitt and Gene Cernan, noticed something odd in 1972 while on the Apollo 17 mission. The landing site had orange dirt. Scientists scratched their brains and eventually concluded that the unusual soil was caused by a volcanic explosion that happened around 3.64 billion years ago. So is this new substance maybe another piece of debris from a meteorite strike or anything similar? As the plot develops, we excitedly anticipate learning the mystery's answers because the jury is still out. Step inside the enigmatic tent. Not all, though. Chang'e Feite's U-22 probe discovered a house-like object in November 2021. Scientists are surprised and delighted to see the little square building known as the mysterious house up close. In an attempt to determine what secrets could be kept inside the structure, scientists advanced the rover closer. However, the public's perception of the mystery shack is incorrect. The moon's dwelling is actually just an average moon that goes by the name Jade Rabbit because of the way it looks. Without a doubt, this moon rock is a precious gem that exists on Earth. It was discovered that the mystery shack illusion was created by combining surfaces, angles, and shadows. This fascinating finding highlights the gaps in our knowledge of celestial objects and the ways in which human senses alter their appearance. This is not a moon-specific illusion. Pareidolia, the phenomenon when objects or pictures appear in random patterns, is widespread worldwide. Mystery House is a story of the intricacy and wonder of the Earth, from seeing faces in clouds to recognizing characters in stone formations across a vast field where light and shadow create eyes. It is true that there is an infinite waiting to be discovered on the moon as we continue to investigate its secrets, from the finding of water and rare minerals to the discovery of helium-3 and the study of peculiar circumstances on the moon. We move closer to solving the riddles of our planetary neighbors and broadening our knowledge of the cosmos with every new expedition and discovery. The moon captivates our imagination and piques our interest with its breathtaking surface views and unexpected terrain. The moon begs us to study its mysteries and uncover its secrets as we prepare for a crew and a star on the horizon, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the history of lunar research. Then come along on an incredible voyage to the moon and beyond with us. We will work together to solve the secrets of the moon, the wonders of the Earth, and the discovery of time, all guided by the spirit of exploration and the desire to learn. We get a little bit closer to solving the universe's riddles and learning the identities of our celestial neighbors with every new discovery.
When you think of the moon, what comes to mind? You could believe it to be a lifeless, dead rock. You believe you are correct, but you are not? Elon Musk really made some startling claims regarding our nearest neighbor. We'll see Elon Musk's thoughts on the moon in this video, along with the reasons behind his belief that it is not what we believe it is. We'll also look at some of the consequences of Musk's statements and how they could affect space exploration going forward. What views does Elon Musk have towards the moon? Is there something that's not obvious? These days, there are many of locations to learn, and nobody is working on the moon to study geology or other sciences. Scientists are still working to solve a number of riddles about the moon despite the extensive research and discoveries that have been done. For instance, study on the moon's interior structure, magnetic field, and other characteristics is still ongoing since its genesis is not entirely known. The idea of utilizing the moon as a base for further space exploration and maybe integration is also of interest. The most well-known lunar mission is perhaps NASA's Apollo program, which took place in the 1960s and 1970s and involved manned landings and experimental missions to the moon. Since then, a large number of nations and organizations have undertaken lunar missions, with China being one among them. China has made many successful lunar landings in recent years. Numerous nations and organizations have carried out lunar missions over the years, such as the Soviet Union's lunar program, which consisted of several unmanned lunar missions carried out between 1959 and 1976. In 1959, iron became the first artificial thing to set foot on the moon. In addition, there are the several moon missions that NASA conducted between 1969 and 1972, as well as the Apollo program. The date was July 20, 1969. Next, we watched an image of NASA's spacecraft, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has been circling the moon since 2009. LRO helps locate prospective landing places in the future and offers comprehensive photographs of the solar system. Furthermore, Project Artemis, a proposal unveiled by NASA, intends to send people back to the moon in 2024 with the goal of creating a permanent human settlement on the former sun. The initiative will entail the development of new technologies and cooperation with industry and international partners, and it will encompass both workers and non-employees. Regarding the Chang'e project, a set of unmanned lunar missions to be conducted by the China National Space Administration, China is not involved in any of this. The Chang'e 4 mission accomplished the first landing on the moon's far side in 2019, and the program involves both people and the rover. Hold on, let's take a little trip back in time. When does the actual tournament begin? In the 20th century, the US and the USSR started competing to develop jet aircraft capabilities. The terminal showcased the development of technology deemed crucial for national security while showcasing the aspirations and symbols of the day. It sprang from the missile-based nuclear weapons race between the two countries following World War II. From the competition site, it will be feasible to broadcast on Earth, launch space missions to Venus, Mars, and the Moon, and launch manned space flights to the lower Earth and eventually the Moon. Space flights soon piqued the curiosity of American periodicals after the Soviet Youth magazine's 1951 release. On July 30, 1955, the United States stated that it intended to launch a satellite for the International Geophysical Year, which delighted nations. The Soviets responded by declaring that they will also release the satellite 4 days later. The development of rocketry shortly after World War II enabled radio transmission. The West faced challenges following the October 4, 1957, launch of Sputnik 1, the Soviet Union's first artificial satellite. This event gave rise to the Sputnik crisis. With the Vostok 1 orbital mission on April 12, 1961, the Soviet Union sent Yuri Gagarin, the first person in space, to galvanize this movement. The Soviet Union advanced more than it had during the previous few years, but the US did not yield. 25 May 1961, the US, by the end of the century, President John F. Kennedy urged Congress to uphold the objective of landing a man on the moon and bringing him back to Earth for safety. This is what Gagarin's flight produced. Both nations began investigating the largest automobiles. The Saturn V, big enough to transport 2 lunar landers and 3 orbiters, was initially used by the United States. With the Apollo 11 mission, Kennedy's ambition of setting foot on the moon was accomplished in July 1969. This accomplishment was deemed the most proud of all Soviet accomplishments by the American people. This opinion isn't universally held, though. Others believe he was the first person to do more in space. In order to launch and land on the moon before the United States, the Soviet Union employed 2 lunar landing designs. However, their N-1 rocket was unsuccessful, and they ultimately decided to forgo both rockets in favor of Salute, the first space station project, and the first landings on Mars and Venus. 5 additional Apollo teams touched down on the moon as the US investigated technology on other alien worlds. Regretfully, the nation has not spoken since the previous lunar landing over half a century ago, and it has just lately returned to the moon. It is evident from all signs that space rivalry is not going to slow down anytime soon, due to the fact that there is still a lot to learn about the celestial bodies that surround our world. As a result, efforts to investigate the moon and other celestial bodies are ongoing, including significant financial investments from the United States, China, and other nations, as well as private businesses. Do you believe that this difficulty and battle will eventually be evident? Naturally, no. Important information that will be provided to them in ensuing investigations will now be requested by all nations. Musk did, however, recently disclose that Chinese scientists were concealing the moon. He reported discovering proof of extraterrestrial life on the moon. Musk said that a person with ties to the Chinese government had supplied this information. He offered no proof for his statements, but it sparked a lot of conjecture online. In the event that Musk is correct, this would be a significant finding. This will alter our perception of the world and prove that life exists elsewhere. Numerous issues concerning the nature of this extraterrestrial life and how it may develop on the moon are also brought up by this. But Elon Musk does not agree with this. As we continue to solve puzzles, it's important to remember that Musk has no supporting data for his assertions. He kept the evidence's whereabouts a secret and did not publish any images or videos of it. It is noteworthy that Musk's statements have not yet been substantiated by the Chinese authorities. Some believe Musk is only attempting to brag, while others believe there could be more to it. Elon Musk, on the other hand, is a successful businessman and space enthusiast. If Musk is telling the truth or not, only time will tell. If true, this would be a significant finding that would alter our conception of the cosmos. Why then does Elon Musk care about this? Elon Musk has always supported the colonization of Mars. He'd always thought there would be life somewhere than Earth, so it should come as no surprise that he has a keen interest in lunar science. Musk stated that, in his opinion, diversity on Earth is essential to humanity's long-term survival, and that, in the past, Mars was the best planet for human habitation. Musk is developing the technology required to transport humans to Mars and establish human habitation on Earth through his firm SpaceX. Among these is the creation of the reusable Starship spaceship, which has the capacity to accommodate up to 100 passengers at once. Building an independent metropolis on Earth with the intention of housing and employing millions of people is one of Musk's objectives for his engagement with Mars. He devised a number of novel concepts to accomplish this aim, including altering the environment to suit humans and using local resources to produce oil and other necessities. Musk's audacious plans have inspired a new generation of space enthusiasts and renewable energy sources. Despite the fact that there are still many obstacles to be solved before humans can successfully land on Mars, such as developing a suitable life support system and shielding passengers from intense electricity, consider the prospect of human exploration and colonization of other worlds. The human imagination is nevertheless fascinated by the secrets of space. In the ensuing 10 years, several space-related institutes have resorted to research programs as a result. 3 nations are involved in these initiatives: China, Russia, and the United States. Elon Musk's SpaceX and other private businesses collaborated as a result of their participation in the competition. China and Musk have lately collaborated in an intriguing way. A remarkable finding has emerged from China, located far away from the moon, as a result of a leak from the CEOs of SpaceX and Tesla. This finding begs the issue of what China found and why it was kept a secret. Is this proof that extraterrestrial life exists? NASA is rivaled by the space exploration advancements achieved by the China National Space Administration. China has added the construction of its own station to its amazing list of accomplishments. During lunar research, China made an odd finding. Elon Musk later revealed this information to the globe. The China Atomic Energy Agency and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration jointly released a statement in reaction to the leak, informing the world of the tragic news. According to the research, lunar science has advanced most rapidly in China. They called Chang'e the new 6th lunar object they found during their quest. Scientists at the Beijing Institute of Uranium Geology found the strange rock while analyzing surface samples that China's Chang'e Feite robotic probe had taken. The material has been acknowledged by the Committee on Nomenclature and Classification of New Minerals of the International Mineralogical Union as unique. Chang'e, according to Musk, is a moonstone of particular importance. This is the initial. Chinese scientists have now identified lunar objects for the 3rd time, following the United States and Russia in achieving this remarkable finding. The mineral sample consists of a single crystal with a diameter of only 10 microns that has been meticulously separated by more than 140,000 microscopic particles. Then, using cutting-edge mineralogical methods, a detailed analysis is conducted. The remarkable Chang'e Feite mission robot was the one responsible for this incredible finding. The Wenchang Space Launch Center in the Hainan province in southern China served as the expedition's launchpad. Following an exhilarating voyage, it made a successful lunar landing, making history as the 3rd spacecraft to accomplish this after China's Chang'e 3 and 4. The vehicle, which was sent there to gather dirt and rocks from the moon, returned safely with 1,731 grams of cargo. It is important to remember that this is a significant accomplishment because the last moon material returned by our star neighbors was 46 years ago. The initial set of lunar samples that were taken from Chang'e Feite will be distributed by the China National Space Administration. For 31 months, these reputable scientists have been engaged in this study effort. This accomplishment, along with its name in Chinese history, is highly significant. The collaboration of specialists from many ministries, including the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Ministry of Education, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences in the research of the lunar model is crucial to this significant endeavor. The findings indicated that these microscopic pebbles were around the diameter of a human hair and more than 1,000 years old. These important discoveries provide up new avenues for investigation and learning about the composition and geological history of the moon. International Mineralogical Society scientists were taken aback by an odd finding made by the Chang'e 5 lunar research mission. Their findings verified that the little crystal on the moon was not the same form as previously thought. It has complex relationships with other minerals that are only found in meteorites or on the moon. These significant research not only advance our knowledge of the moon's formation and history, but they also provide the groundwork for future studies on the utilization of lunar resources. However, this is not the only unexpected finding from the moon expedition. Musk is also interested in another recent finding. Researchers and astronomers at the Chang'e Feite Lunar Rock Laboratory looked at helium-3 traces found in about 140,000 lunar particles. Although it is thought to be abundant on the moon, this form of helium is uncommon on Earth. It is thought to be a fuel source that has the power to completely transform how clean, efficient energy is produced and used worldwide. This event demonstrates Musk's purposeful disclosure of information to the public. Without a question, the importance of renewable energy is rising. Future prospects for renewable energy are bright. Elon Musk feels that renewable energy is the way of the future and that using fossil fuels damages the environment since they are finite resources. Renewable energy sources, including solar and wind power, are plentiful and have a sustainable usage. The future of renewable energy will be more efficiently and effectively transitioned through the use of renewable energy. In recent years, there has been a notable decline in the cost of solar and wind energy, a trend that is anticipated to continue. Additionally, as energy storage technology advances, people will be able to use renewable energy sources more effectively. As opposed to battery technology and renewable energy, battery technology is necessary for the growth of renewable energy. Solar and wind energy only produce energy when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing because all forms of energy are interrelated. This can be accomplished by storing extra power in batteries going forward for use at other times, including during periods of high demand or low sunshine. As a result, renewable energy is now more affordable and dependable. For instance, Tesla has always excelled in battery technology. For many years, Tesla has been a leader in battery technology. For instance, Tesla manufactures its own batteries, which are longer lasting and more efficient than conventional batteries. Furthermore, Powerwall, a battery storage technology that enables homeowners to store excess power generated by solar panels for later use, was created by Tesla. To address our energy demands, we require battery storage, wind turbines, and solar energy. More incentives and better rules are also required to promote the usage of renewable energy. Elon Musk is heading into the future for a number of reasons, including all of the above. Since its discovery, scientists have been perplexed by the possibility of using helium-3, an uncommon kind of energy that is produced when two light atoms combine to form a heavier atom as a fuel source for nuclear fusion. There is interest and curiosity over the potential use of helium-3 as a fuel for nuclear fusion. The richness and special qualities of the moon present opportunities for potential future energy shifts. Musk's choice to make this information available to the public shows how it has the power to alter the energy landscape and open the door for more efficient, sustainable, and clean energy. Despite the fact that fusion happens naturally in star cores, scientists have not yet succeeded in building a fusion reactor that can generate more energy than is supplied to it. But since helium-3 generates less radiation and radioactive waste than other materials, it may be used as a valuable source of fusion fuel. Musk claims that helium-3 does exist, although in trace proportions. As opposed to this, it is believed to be more prevalent on the moon, where solar winds have deposited it directly onto the surface of the sun over millions of years. Despite the paucity of reactors capable of using helium-3, the European Space Agency said that the race for the star had begun. China and the United States are among the several private businesses and aviation-related nations that have indicated interest in mining helium-3 on the moon. The finding of lunar helium-3 by Chang'e Feite may intensify rivalry among nations for lunar material resources. Without a doubt, this finding pushes the limits of resource use and space exploration. As part of his goal to advance human civilization worldwide, Musk has revealed plans to build a human colony on the moon in addition to his clean and energy-efficient initiatives. His intended objective aligns with the expanding understanding that human life may exist on the moon.
The lunar module of the Apollo 11 mission touched down on the moon on July 20th, 1969. Among them were Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Once they were on the moon, Neil Armstrong tried to open the door so they could go down. High pressure made it hard to open this door, but he was able to do it after little trouble. Then he put on his heavy spacesuit and tried to get to the moon. He hit the top by accident because the exit wasn't very big, and a piece of the lunar module broke off. Because there wasn't enough air, neither of them knew this. The sound didn't go anywhere. They didn't hear anything. But this broken part was very important. It was the switch that turns on the ascent engine. Their lunar module couldn't take off again, and they couldn't get back to Earth without this switch. He didn't know this when he got out of the spaceship and walked on the moon's surface. He was the first person to walk on the moon.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
However, did it really happen? Even though it's been more than 50 years, many people still don't think that people went to the moon. Some people come up with their own ideas to say that the whole Apollo 11 mission was a fake that America put on. They lied to everyone and shot the scenes on Earth. What else could explain the flag flapping when there is no wind? What does the truth say? Let's watch this video and try to understand what it's about.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Houston, we see you on a stereo, over. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Friends, it might surprise you to learn that the real reason Apollo 11 was planned was to start a war. To be more specific, the Cold War. United States and the USSR were at odds with each other. There was a space race between the two countries. Since 1957, the Soviet Union has been the first country to launch a man-made satellite. It was called Sputnik, and it was the first thing that people put into orbit around the Earth. The US government was shocked to see the USSR pulling ahead. After a few months in 1958, the United States also launched a satellite. After 3 years, in 1961, America got another shot. His name was Yuri Gagarin, and he was the first person to go to space. Once more, the Soviets beat the United States. After 1 week, on April 20th, 1961, John F. Kennedy, who was president of the United States at the time, sent a letter to the vice president. He asked the vice president what they could do to beat the USSR, putting a lab in space or taking a trip around the moon, etc. Are we working 24 hours a day on existing programs? If not, why not? Are we putting in the most effort? They were asking if there was another space program that could be done quickly, would have big effects, and put them ahead of the competition. Following a few days, he found out the answer. Sending people to the moon would be the next big thing. In his famous speech on May 25th, 1961, he told everyone that he would send people to the moon by the end of the decade. Besides this, he also promised to safely bring people back to Earth.
Before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
A lot of people thought this was an amazing news. Friends, let's go back to 1961. There were no internet and not even GPS. In those days, computers were very slow and old, but he promised to send people to the moon. For this reason, he gave the space program an extra $7 billion to $9 billion over the next 5 years. The space agency as a whole was working toward this one goal. After only a few months, the tests started. To begin, they checked out the rockets that would take them away from Earth. After that, the command unit's heat screens were checked, how well they could stand up to heat. Then the service module systems for moving it forward. From 1963 to 1967, a lot of tests were done without people being there. During the tests, the rockets did not carry any people. The first test with people on board in February 1967. For the test, people will be sent into space on rockets. In this case, it was Apollo 1. But on January 27, 1967, while the tests were going on Earth, the cabin caught fire, killing the 3 men who were getting ready to go to space. NASA didn't give up after this terrible event. In its place, it kept trying more. Missions Apollo 4, 5, and 6 were all done without any people on board, to do more tests. With the launch of Apollo 7 in October 1968, they tried to send people into space once more. This worked out well. In just 2 months, in December 1968, the Apollo 8 mission took 3 men close to the moon. In March 1969, 3 months after that, the Apollo 9 mission took off. The moon module was put to the test in that part of the spaceship that was going to land on the moon. It was May 1969, 2 months after that, when Apollo 10 took off. It was practice for 3 men to do almost everything that they were meant to do on the Apollo 11 mission, except land on the moon. Take a look at how fast NASA was sending out flights one after the other. Every 2 to 3 months, there is a new time to test something new. There were tests of rockets, spaceships, and going to the moon. Finally, on July 16, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission was sent into space.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
There were 3 men on this trip. Neil Armstrong, a leader who was 38 years old, led this mission. Buzz Aldrin was in charge of flying the lunar module, and Michael Collins was in charge of flying the command module. There are records of these 3 names in the books of history. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin become well-known people whose names everyone knows today. You might not know this, but Michael Collins isn't very well known. I'll tell you why later in the film. There were 3 main parts to the spaceship that Apollo 11 used. There is the lunar module, the service module, and the command module. The first 2 together are called CSM. The plan was for the lunar module to be taken off and rest on the moon. The lunar module would have to be launched again and connected to the CSM so that the men could get back to Earth. A Saturn V rocket was going to be used to send this spaceship into space. Before it took off, the rocket was filled with 1 million gallons of kerosene, oxygen, and hydrogen. This rocket weighed 3 million kilograms. With its help, the spaceship got into orbit around the Earth. It didn't take long to get to the orbit. Then they went around the Earth about 1.5 times. After that, Mission Control, which was based on Earth, gave them permission to start translunar injection. Getting the spaceship out of Earth's orbit and into Moon's orbit, the Saturn V rocket was used to get out of Earth's orbit. The rocket's 3rd stage was this. These things happened less than 5 hours after the start, but it took several days to get to the moon. While waiting in the spacecraft, the astronauts ate, slept, and took pictures of themselves and their surroundings. On July 19, 1969, after traveling almost 400,000 kilometers, the Apollo 11 spaceship reached orbit around the moon. It was meant to be split into 2 here. The lunar module and the command and service module broke apart. In the command module, Michael Collins was. This part of the spaceship was called Columbia. The lunar module was also known as the Eagle. It had Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin in it. The command and service module was supposed to stay in orbit around the moon. There would only be 1 capsule that would land on the moon. That means Michael Collins could not walk on the moon. Only Armstrong and Aldrin could. This could be why not many people know about Michael Collins. He was on the Apollo mission, but he didn't walk on the moon. Still, Michael Collins may have played the most important role in this mission, because the lunar module was meant to be joined to the CSM again. Armstrong and Aldrin could not have come back safely without Michael Collins. The lunar module was set to land on the moon around 8 p.m. At 8:10 p.m. the bells went off. 12:01 and 12:02 sounds.
1201. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
Armstrong and Aldrin both didn't know what this warning meant. They asked Mission Control what they should do next. Mission Control tells them not to worry about it and keep going.
Where go? Same type. Where go?
They found out later that at 12:02 was a message. The Apollo navigation computer's processing system was too busy to handle the extra work. Thanks to smart engineering, the computer was built so that the mission-critical apps would keep running even when it was crowded. The program for automatic landing was put on the computer. The lunar module would then land itself on the moon's surface. But Neil Armstrong took over when they were 150 meters above the ground. It looked like the lunar module was going to land in a place with a lot of big rocks all over the place. At that point, the landing spot was changed, and they chose a different spot for the landing that was 4 miles away from where they were supposed to land. Buzz Aldrin looked at the fuel gauge at 8:16 p.m. There was only 5% fuel left.
100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward. 5%.
They started the countdown when they saw how little fuel was left. The timer is running out to decide if they should land or give up on the task.
Now we're critical fuel state. And that's why the 60-second call was given, and then the 30-second call.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility.
The Eagle had made it safely to land. Neil Armstrong then put on his spacesuit, opened the door, and walked out onto the moon.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Nearly 650 million people watched this event on TV. The world watched his first words on TV.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buzz Aldrin stayed with him on the moon's surface for another 2.5 hours, during which they took pictures, collected samples of the moon's dust and rocks, and set up a number of science tools. There is no doubt that the Cold War played a big role in the decision to land on the moon. But since the mission was already planned, it was clear that they brought science equipment with them. Several science goals were also part of this trip. They put up a TV camera on the moon so that it could send messages back to Earth. They brought a tool to study the solar winds that reach the moon, installed a machine that sends laser beams to Earth. The laser beams can be used to find the exact distance between Earth and the moon. They also had a seismometer that didn't work. To find out how strong the moon's shocks are, they also left an American flag behind, in a plate that said, "Here, men from the planet Earth first set foot on the moon, July 1969 AD. The lunar module had to stay on the moon for 21 hours. Then it had to take off again and attach to the CSM. But in order to go up, they needed power, which meant they needed an engine. Armstrong and Aldrin didn't realize that the switch to turn on the engine had broken while they were getting out. They found out what had happened when they got back to the lunar module. They told Mission Control about the damage and started looking for a way to fix it. They came up with an interesting solution. Buzz Aldrin realized that if the circuit was broken, they needed to find something that could be used to fix it. He looked around and saw his ballpoint pen. He used it to fix the circuit and start the engine again. Finally, the lunar module was attached to the CSM again, and the 3 astronauts turned the spacecraft back toward Earth. The plan for landing on Earth was for the command module and the service module to be split apart. The service module would then be destroyed by Earth's atmosphere, but there was a chance that if the service module was badly damaged, its pieces could fly into the command module and kill the astronauts inside. To keep this from happening, NASA put thrusters in the service module to move it away from the command module so that the two wouldn't crash into each other. But when the astronauts were coming back to Earth, they found that the thrusters on the service module weren't working. The 3 astronauts could only sit in the command module and watch as the service module broke apart around them. It was a miracle that the pieces didn't hit the command module, which is still safe. There was such a high chance that the astronauts would die on this mission that US President Nixon wrote an alternative speech in case they did. Can you imagine that speech? In it, he said, "Fate has decreed that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace. Ernest Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, it are brave guys who know they will never get better. These 2 guys are giving up their lives for the most important cause in the world, the search for truth and understanding." Luckily, this wasn't needed. The command module safely descended through Earth's atmosphere, its parachutes deployed, and it landed in the ocean, where all 3 astronauts were still alive and safe. It was truly miraculous that they made it back alive. The mission hadn't gone exactly as planned. They had to deal with problems at almost every step. They were able to make it back alive. It's interesting to note that after they got back, the 3 astronauts were quarantined for 2 weeks. It was against the rules for them to be around other people because they might have brought viruses or bacteria from the moon that could cause problems on Earth. Luckily, nothing bad happened. The landing of Apollo 11 on the moon was the biggest story in newspapers around the world. It was part of President Kennedy's promise that humans would land on the moon by the end of the decade.
In 1969, the public had little reason to question mankind's historic first step on the moon. After all, the achievement was a celebration of technological supremacy. America had finally won the space race.
Isn't it strange that America reached the moon the year before, in 1969? To get an edge in the Cold War, they couldn't have planned a fake moon landing operation, could they? Their real mission to land on the moon failed, so they planned this fake mission as a backup for everyone to see. Friends, This is just one example of a conspiracy theory based on the moon landing. But friends, these theories have been debunked many times already. If this was an attempt by the US to trick the world, the Soviets would never have admitted it, but the Great Soviet Encyclopedia, which came out between 1970 and 1979 in its 3rd edition, the Apollo landing was the 3rd most important event in the history of the space age, after Sputnik's launch in 1957 and Yuri Gagarin's flight in 1961. The Soviet Union officially agreed with this. But what about the flag? Why was it flapping around on the moon where there is no air? There is a simple explanation for this, friends. The flag that Armstrong and Aldrin took to the moon was specially made. Usually flags have one long vertical rod, but this one had a horizontal rod right at the top so that the flag would always be stretched out. Because no wind would blow a flag on the moon, NASA decided to add a horizontal rod to the top so that the flag could always be seen. But on the Apollo 11 mission, there were problems extending this horizontal rod, so it couldn't be extended all the way to the end. This is what made the ripples in the flag, which is why people think it's fluttering. You can only see it fluttering in videos where astronauts are moving it. The aluminum rods in the flag were like springs, so the flag would move for a short time and then stay still. The 3rd most popular theory says that the stars can't be seen in the pictures Armstrong and Aldrin took. The reason for this is very simple. The moon landing happened during the day. When sunlight hit the moon, astronauts' white spacesuits were very reflective. Back then, cameras didn't have the resolution to see past reflections. There is also a theory about the shadows and why they aren't all at the same angle. Some say that because it looked like a Hollywood movie, they didn't have a single source of light, which is why the shadows are all over the place. But in reality, the sun wasn't the only source of light. The moon's surface was also a source of light because it reflected so much of it. This is why the light went in all different directions and the shadows were so strange. Beyond these silly ideas, there was real criticism. Not everyone praised the moon landing and NASA's work. In January 1962, the New York Times reported that the money being spent to go to the moon could have been used to build at least 120 universities the size of Harvard. People asked if the money being spent on the moon landing should have been used to build a Harvard-style university in every US state instead. They said there were better ways to spend that money because the country had so many problems, like education and income inequality, and was still dealing with the effects of the Vietnam War. So why was so much money being wasted on this? But there were many benefits to the moon landing that no one had even thought of, like the progress made in computer chips. In 1962, 3 years after they were invented, IBM decided that they wouldn't use microchips in their computers.
Here is a packaged integrated circuit. Inside this package is a chip of silicon which provides the electrical equivalent of many transistors, resistors, and diodes, all interconnected to provide the desired function.
But because NASA ordered so many integrated circuits, IBM started working on it. The price dropped by more than 90% over the next 5 years because of the high demand. This was done to see if computers could keep people safe. If astronauts could go to the moon and back using these chips, then we can use them in our everyday lives. Technology grew very quickly after this mission. However, Apollo 17 was the last mission to the moon, happening in December 1972. It has been almost 50 years since then, and no one else has been there. It took more than 400,000 engineers, scientists, and technicians to work on the Apollo program, which cost a total of $24 billion. That amount of money is now worth more than $100 billion. But by 1972, most people were no longer interested in NASA or the moon because the Vietnam War was still going on and people were having more problems. They thought the space program was a waste of money.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War assembled in the nation's capital for a mass protest.
NASA had planned missions up to Apollo 20, but politicians had to listen to the people and cut back on the money spent on space programs. In December 2017, former President Donald Trump said he would increase funding so that people could be sent back to the moon by 2024.
Returning American astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972 for long-term exploration and use this time.
But later he changed his mind and said NASA should focus on Mars instead of the moon. But now, 50 years later, NASA has made plans to send people to the moon again through their new Artemis program. but NASA wants to send the first woman to the moon by 2025 or 2026. One thing is for sure, people will be back on the moon by the end of this decade. If you like this video, you can watch more space-related videos by clicking on this playlist. The videos cover a lot of interesting topics.
China intends to mine the moon urgently with a magnetic rocket. Imagine a massive machine that is positioned on the moon and is spinning erratically in order to be ready to launch materials back to Earth. Now take a moment to reflect. What if this breakthrough ushers in a more sinister era of global resource control? As we explore China's risky lunar aspirations and the unanticipated effects they could entail, keep checking back. China's audacious plan to revolutionize space mining. Chinese researchers are at the forefront of this innovative development, leading the way in the creation of a state-of-the-art magnetic launcher that has the potential to completely change space exploration and space mining. This cutting-edge technology is supported by a massive $18 billion investment, and it may also be crucial in tackling some of Earth's energy problems. The Shanghai Institute of Satellite Engineering, a pioneer in developing novel techniques for space exploration and resource exploitation, is spearheading this ambitious project with the help of a committed team. Their breakthrough paves the way for a time when space exploration may help meet the world's energy demands. The research was about to achieve a significant milestone when an unexpected finding deep within the launch mechanism threatened to bring everything crashing down. Not only was space travel's very future in jeopardy, but what they discovered next would alter the path of human history forever. The mechanism of the planned magnetic levitation facility on the moon is comparable to an athlete's hammer throw. Imagine an athlete throwing a hammer with a swiftly rotating arm that shoots materials into space. This groundbreaking technique uses magnetic levitation to launch items instead of traditional rocket fuel, providing a far more effective and economical means of space travel. This strategy might drastically cut the costs of transporting minerals from the moon to Earth by lowering reliance on conventional fuels, which would transform the economics of space exploration and resource exploitation. A unique superconducting motor will drive a 50-meter rotating arm at the site. In around 10 minutes, this arm will be able to discharge materials at the speed at which the moon escapes. Once operational, it might manage up to 2 launches daily, returning resources from the moon to Earth. Both nuclear and solar energy will be used to power these rockets. Remarkably, during each launch's slowdown phase, more than 70% of the energy consumed will be regenerated. One of the main objectives of this initiative is to gather and return helium-3, an element that is scarce on Earth and may be utilized to nuclear fusion to produce clean energy. 3 to 5 tons will be mined and returned each year. According to experts, this may have a significant effect on global energy sustainability as well as offer enormous financial advantages. The amount of it that can be found on the moon might really be sufficient to provide the world's energy demands for thousands of years. However, the difficulties are genuine. This project is challenging because of the harsh climate on the moon and the requirement for an extremely massive rocket to transport the system there. By the year 2030, researchers plan to have the major components completed, and by the year 2045, they hope to have the system completely operational. If successful, this effort might transform not just space exploration but also lunar resource extraction, bringing us one step closer to an off-Earth economy that can support itself. Is this the start of a new chapter in Earth's energy history? The potential advantages are obvious, even though the entire effect won't become apparent for some time. This invention has the potential to drastically alter our views on energy production and space travel. The moon was once thought of mostly as a scientific curiosity, but it is now recognized as an important resource, especially when countries like China and Russia work together on large-scale space projects. This collaboration demonstrates how the moon's potential to revolutionize the way we address the world's energy problems is becoming increasingly acknowledged. By the year 2035, China hopes to have a research station established in the south pole of the moon. This station will be a major mining facility in addition to being a center for scientific exploration. Its primary purpose will be to collect a rare isotope that has the potential to completely transform the generation of clean nuclear energy. Shanghai experts claim that only 20 tons of it could power China for a whole year, offering a potential solution to the country's increasing energy needs. If this initiative is successful, it has the potential to revolutionize the search for long-term, sustainable energy sources. People's interest in the magnetic launcher's workings and the reasons behind its popularity has grown. The launcher runs solely on electricity sourced from the moon's nuclear and solar energy resources. Due to the moon's lack of atmosphere and low gravity, this gadget is incredibly effective in returning items to Earth. The launcher greatly lowers the cost of transportation because of these advantageous conditions. According to scientific estimates, it could launch goods twice a day, cutting current transportation costs to just 10% of what they are now. With a weight of around 80 metric tons, or 88 US tons, the launcher is a massive device. China would use its massive Long March 9 rocket to deliver it to the moon. The harsh terrain and intense heat of the moon present many technological obstacles, but scientists are willing to take on these problems since the payoffs might be enormous. The launcher might function for up to 20 years once it got going. It's really incredible to think that it might transmit useful supplies back to Earth for a period of 20 years. China has a special interest in a rare substance that has the potential to transform nuclear energy by enabling nuclear fusion, a more effective and clean energy source. Since the moon is one of the best locations to find it, the significance of this project is increased. The potential for China to harness the rare element successfully might spark a worldwide energy revolution, which is the actual game changer in this situation. This has the potential to upset the power dynamics in the energy sector. The project's estimated cost of roughly 1.3 trillion yuan, or 18 billion US dollars, demonstrates how significant and audacious it is. But the reward might be equally enormous, offering new prospects for mining and space exploration in addition to the rare material. These difficulties are only the start, though. And that's not even the most difficult portion. By employing comparable techniques to collect and return resources to Earth, this gadget may alter the way humans conduct missions to other planets and moons in the future. The transformation of space into a resource-rich environment, which previously appeared unreal, is starting to come true. The following chapter will examine the wider ramifications for international space cooperation and worldwide energy solutions as we investigate the possibilities of lunar mining. Constructing the magnetic launcher on the moon, this audacious effort faces enormous obstacles. Serious technical issues are caused by the moon's uneven, rough surface and abrupt temperature swings. The effectiveness and lifespan of the magnetic launcher may be impacted by several factors. Strong materials and clever technical solutions will be required to overcome this and ensure the rocket operates well over time. It is an enormous effort to build an 80-ton launcher on the moon, where circumstances are severe and merciless. But China has always been able to overcome these types of obstacles with inventiveness and tenacity. With its rich foundation in space exploration, it is in an excellent position to handle these complex issues. Its achievements in materials science, robotics, and space technology give a solid basis to address the challenging technological demands of this project. Its experience with the Chang'e lunar missions, which have functioned under the moon's difficult circumstances, indicates that it has the capacity to manage and overcome space-related obstacles. It is prepared to pursue this groundbreaking initiative by utilizing cutting-edge technology and closely collaborating with critical partners like Russia. That aspect wasn't the hardest yet, though. In the worldwide competition for space resources, successfully establishing the magnetic space rocket might propel it to the forefront of space exploration. It's becoming evident as it advances its space objectives that it has aspirations beyond simple scientific advancement. A crucial component of its strategy to establish a powerful presence in space and make use of its abundant resources is this endeavor. International collaboration on space missions is becoming increasingly important, as demonstrated by the Lunar Research Station partnership with Russia. By working together, these nations hope to accomplish an endeavor that was previously unthinkable, developing a means of effectively retrieving resources from space and returning them to Earth. When it comes to extracting resources from the moon, this revolutionary magnetic space rocket may completely alter the rules. It's not even the best part, though. The launcher won't require conventional fuel because it will run on nuclear and solar energy. The moon has nearly no air and very little gravity, thus the rocket can return materials to Earth twice a day for a cost that is just 10% of what it currently costs. China will need to utilize the Long March 9, its most potent rocket, to launch the entire system, which is expected to weigh about 80 metric tons. In order to carry out the large equipment into orbit and fulfill the ambitious goals for lunar exploration and mining, this powerful spaceship is a must. In order to successfully deploy the system and open the door for further developments in space-based technology, the Long March 9 is essential. Consider utilizing the moon's abundant resources to assist in resolving Earth's energy issues. An intriguing invention by Chinese scientists might enable this, a magnetic launcher. This is a serious strategy to employ new space technology, not simply science fiction. Resources like helium-3, a rare material discovered on the moon, are intended to be returned to Earth via the rocket. It is simpler to launch objects from the moon due to its low gravity and absence of atmosphere. This rocket might cut transportation costs by 90%, resulting in extremely profitable lunar mining operations. We'll go over the launcher's operation, significance for the future, and potential changes to our energy sources in this discussion. Now tell me how this magnetic launcher operates. It takes use of the moon's peculiar environment, its reduced gravity, and essentially no air resistance. Imagine it like an Olympic athlete throwing a hammer. With the help of an incredibly efficient engine, the launcher's fast-rotating arm propels a capsule packed with lunar resources toward Earth. Scientists at the Shanghai Institute of Satellite Engineering have been putting a lot of effort into making this more than simply a fun concept. The launcher is powered by electricity and requires no fuel because it operates using magnetic levitation. This streamlines the process and could enable the system to deploy items twice daily. This is where things become really fascinating, though. The speed required to flee the moon's surface is just 1/6 that required to leave Earth. This further reduces the launcher's cost. In only 10 minutes, the project's developers have managed to spin the arm quickly, enough to achieve the moon's escape velocity, which is around 2.5 kilometers per second. Because of its accuracy, the capsule is launched on an almost ideal trajectory, requiring minimal subsequent adjustments. The technology is also incredibly energy efficient, recovering almost 70% of the energy consumed in each launch by turning the motion of the spinning arm back into electricity as it slows down. This is a major improvement over traditional rockets, which squander far more energy. Still, there's more to be said than just financial savings. Through the utilization of the moon's plentiful resources, we may greatly increase our ability to produce energy on Earth. This development would be a huge step in the right direction towards solving the urgent energy problems that our world is currently facing. In the worldwide endeavor to provide a dependable and effective energy future for future generations, this discovery might lead to the development of more sustainable energy solutions. Let's now explore the technological collaborations and advances that enable these large-scale initiatives. The moon's role in global power. The moon's particular environment has given rise to a pioneering technology that has the potential to lower the cost of transferring minerals from the moon to Earth by as much as 90%. This huge drop in expenditures is considered by experts as a game changer, clearing the path for more regular lunar mining operations. As a result, the moon might become a vital contributor to Earth's energy supply, transforming it into a significant resource for satisfying global energy demands. This discovery has the potential to completely change our understanding of the moon, from a far-off celestial body to an important role in the development of energy generation. This is essential because of helium-3, a scarce element on Earth but considerably more plentiful on the moon. It might transform how we manufacture energy. This chemical can be utilized in nuclear reactors that are more safer and don't generate toxic waste. The moon holds more than 1 million tons, yet only 20 tons could power China for an entire year. This implies that the planet might receive its energy from the moon for thousands of years. But this isn't the largest part. Additionally, this strategy positions China as a leader in high-tech sectors and space exploration. The magnetic launch system is a component of a larger plan to employ artificial intelligence, strengthen launch vehicles, and enhance space mining. The potential financial gain from mining helium-3 might be enormous, and it might potentially contribute to future funding of space research. The magnetic launcher may also be useful for international alliances, particularly those with nations like Russia. Russia and China are collaborating on a project to construct a shared lunar station. By the year 2035, they want to establish a research facility in the south pole of the moon. This station would be vital for the magnetic launcher, offering everything needed to acquire, process, and transmit minerals from the moon back to Earth. However, the effect may be greater still. China and Russia stand to benefit greatly from a strong position in the expanding space industry if they use this technology in their moon missions. Should this effort succeed, it may usher in a new age for the space industry. Exploiting the moon for helium-3 and other resources might help humanity move away from fossil fuels and toward more renewable energy sources. This rocket is a significant first step toward a long-term presence in space, since it may potentially spark the development of new businesses like off-world manufacturing and space transportation. The moon may play a significant role in Earth's economy soon. But the magnetic launcher has its drawbacks, just like any cutting-edge technology. The largest challenge is figuring out how to construct such a system on the rough lunar surface. The hostile environment of the moon poses significant threats due to its severe temperatures, powerful cosmic radiation, and gritty lunar dust. The spinning arm of the launcher must be powerful enough to maneuver through these challenging situations at high speeds. It is quite difficult to ensure stability when it weighs around 80 tons. Another major issue is moving and assembling the magnetic launcher on the moon. Leading the way, China is developing massive launch vehicles capable of transporting these bulky components into orbit. However, before any building can start, these spacecraft must be sent into space successfully. This entire project will set you back a staggering 132 billion yuan, or a whopping $132 billion. This initial expense is still somewhat high, despite the enormous potential rewards. Furthermore, a significant delay in the launch vehicle development might cause the project's timetable to be extended. However, this isn't even the most difficult part of the circumstance. There is a tremendous competition among nations to be the first to grab and manage the unexplored riches that lay beyond our planet as space turns into a lucrative economic frontier. The recent cooperation between China and Russia on their magnetic launcher project may have far-reaching effects in this competition for supremacy, possibly completely changing the face of space exploration. These two nations stand to acquire a major strategic edge if they are successful in creating and using this technology, particularly in the pursuit of precious resources on the moon. The moon may emerge as the next major arena for the struggle for economic domination, since it is thought to contain enormous amounts of vital components including rare earth elements, helium-3, and other vital minerals. China and Russia might gain an advantage in the fight for resources if they are able to develop a magnetic launcher that is effective in bringing down the cost of moving items to and from the moon. There is still hope for the magnetic launcher despite all of these obstacles. Since the system is expected to survive for at least 20 years, making the initial investment may pay off in the long run. If successful, this research may pave the way for further innovations in resource acquisition and space logistics. It may even encourage people to travel farther into space and establish lunar bases. This would represent a significant advancement in our utilization of the moon's resources. That's not all, though. This technique may be a more economical and energy-efficient means of returning vital materials like helium-3 to Earth due to the special circumstances on the moon. The effects may be enormous, altering the way we generate energy, stimulating the economy, and transforming the international space race. Naturally, there are many challenging engineering issues and political obstacles in the way. However, if this initiative is successful, it may usher in a new era of lunar commerce, bringing with it additional inventions and increasing the number of people who live in space. As countries vie for resources off-world, may this technological advancement cause problems within the global power structure.
Scientists and space fans are paying attention to something astonishing as the secret of the cosmos is revealed in our giant celestial neighbor, the surface of an ancient and enigmatic structure produced by the lunar dirt. Everything we know about Earth, aside from its natural satellite, is called into question by this finding. What mysteries does the moon conceal that have been held from us for ages, and how can the solutions to these mysteries change our position within the cosmos? Come along with us as we explore discovery that stunned the entire world. China found something unique about the moon that altered our perception of its surface. Chinese engineers launched the rocket party in the 9th century AD, setting the stage for today's spectacular pyrotechnic displays and rocket engines. Despite dominating the race in the middle of the 20th century, China got on the Soviet Union's tail in the 1950s and began exploring space. But with the fall of the Soviet Union, China started to shift to the left. They triumphantly launched the first satellite into orbit on April 24, 1970. Since then, the technology has been gradual but stable. China's lunar orbiter Chang'e 1 made it inside the moon in just 10 days after arriving there for the first time in 2007. Didn't get much attention at first, but people from all over the globe didn't stop China's progress until Chang'e amazed them all with a new solar system. China, however, doesn't stop there. A relative of the International Space Station, they constructed their own space station. China's new modular playground is the result of this cosmic growth, and the nation is getting ready to pay the price to reach new heights. China's space exploration has taken an exciting turn, particularly as the country's space exploration sector starts to become well known in the exploration community. While exploring the enigmatic dark side of the moon, Chang'e 2 comes across another item. Images from China shed light on the enigma of the orange-yellow gel that shocked scientists to no end. A lot of people started to question whether this was proof of lunar life. However, the Chinese are silent, keeping the rest of the world in the dark. Chang'e 2 gained notoriety and an honorable medal for accomplishing the audacious task of exploring the enigmatic backstage area on the enigmatic dark side of the moon. Celestial difficulties are resolved by earthly control, and the whole lunar month is under control. The China National Space Administration has broken earthly rules and resolved significant communications issues by using the magic of space. It's interesting to note that China not only had the highest number of launches in 2018-39 total, beating out the US with 31 and Russia with 20, but it also got off to an even better start in 2019. They made a rover landing on the moon's dark side on January 3 and managed to get even more enigmatic pictures of our celestial neighbors. It's a significant accomplishment for China, on par with taking home the global championship in space exploration. Engineer Doug Ellison of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory captured images and created stunning panoramas from them. The lander that transported the rover to the dark side of the moon is also visible in these photos, which give us a glimpse inside the rover's point of view. China intends to use the moon extensively. The lunar surface exhibits a dichotomy between its two phases, as demonstrated by several 4,444-year orbits. One side of us has a more level surface, and the other resembles a wonderland with many of craters. It is now thought by scientists that the moon's far side is thicker than its near side and may contain some mysteries. However, unless someone examines it in person, we can't be certain. The moon's remoteness excites astronomers because, similar to cosmic time, it is a calm place devoid of earthly radio waves, ideal for researching the formation and evolution of stars and galaxies. The rover has a plethora of equipment, including a spectrometer for collecting cold radio images, sophisticated equipment for monitoring radiation, and a camera for taking photographs of the moon. Finding food, going on a treasure hunt on the moon, and seeing how the sun's atmosphere interacts with the moon. China's lunar exploration effort includes the Chang'e 4 mission. Before sending out research to watch from above, they are now excavating. The Chang'e 4 mission's flying location has the name of a Chinese moon goddess. Launched from the Xichang Launch Center in western China, the March 3B rocket made its first flight on December 7. Since December 13th, he has been away from the cosmic companion, attending to the necessary functions of his data and communications. Since landing, it has carried out some incredible scientific experiments and explored previously uncharted space. They are problematic because of the glass substance, which is distinct from regular lunar soil. The moon was dark, making visibility poor. Merely 38% of classrooms exhibit detectable plagiarism. This glass substance is surprisingly similar to its lunar surroundings, indicating that it could seem like other lunar dust. This is when the intriguing part comes in. The surface of this dark, green moon reflection is around 52 by 60 centimeters. This secret is revealed by scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences in a scholarly study that was published in the journal Earth and Planetary Science Letters. This dark green glow impact melted material is known as lunar mystery breccia. It was discovered in the Von Karman crater, far from the light and disturbance. Researchers matched materials from the US Apollo missions with photos captured by the lunar rover. The green item was discovered to have some hazy resemblance to the Apollo sample, which raises the possibility that it was formed during a lunar impact. After a successful 23-day space voyage, the Chang'e 5 mission came to a close on December 1, 2020, when it landed on the asteroid. From China's Hainan province, the Wenchang spacecraft launch site saw the twin dynamic detectors take off like rockets. Numerous missions, including the launch of satellites, portions of the Chinese space station, and probes like Chang'e 3, have been successfully completed by the launch pad. The Chang'e 5 lander touched down gracefully on the moon's hot spot, also known as the God of the Ocean, after successfully separating from the orbiter in. This large, flat region is on the moon's far side, close to the equator, incredibly open, and connected to the 1,250-meter Mons Rumka. There is a laser target, so the Chang'e 5 mission is not merely a joyful event. The mission of the roughly 8-ton interstellar explorer is to retrieve moon rocks back to Earth and gather samples from the moon. These unusual creatures are coming home for the first time in 40 years. There may be more to the moon than previously believed, according to recent discoveries. Some even venture to imagine that the moon has a bountiful store of food that might hold the secret to unleashing our strength. The expedition was carried out aboard a spacecraft that was circumnavigating the moon and meticulously gathering samples from its depths. People all throughout the world held their breath as the jet started to return to Earth just 14 days later. China became one of the top countries in aerospace with this triumph. Scientists were anticipating the return of the lunar samples with great anticipation, even as the world celebrated this feat. As they have unraveled the mysteries of the moon, scientists from all across the world have lived up to expectations, offering fresh viewpoints and unexpected findings. The capsule successfully re-entered Earth's atmosphere on December 17, 2020, and touched down in the vast, sparsely inhabited region of Mongolia. The specialists were delighted to go to work right away after learning that the samples were safe. An urgent issue is raised. Is there anything entirely new occurring in the moon's interior, or will this drilling support current hypotheses about how the moon formed? However, some astronomers started to decipher the possible meaning of the capsule's structure even before it arrived on Earth. These specialists assert that about 4 billion years ago, a planet roughly the size of Mars collided with Earth, creating the conditions for the formation of the moon. A portion of our planet was ripped away in the tumultuous aftermath of this cosmic collision and converted into rock by molten lava. Up until today, the conventional consensus was that the water column had been permanently obliterated by the heat of that age. The moon is a dim thing that is gradually disappearing from our collective perception, like to a cosmic plum. This lunar tail now has a degree of mystery thanks to recent discoveries. Over the course of the last several months and years, telescopes and detectors have been working non-stop to reveal a startling truth. Massive sheets of ice are concealed within the craters close to the moon's poles. Abruptly, the once dry moon started to live up to its reputation of being parched, displaying ice that defied expectations. Long believed to be in a state of constant drought, the moon appears to have a hidden reservoir ready to divert attention, change the course of history, and more. As the tale progresses, all of a sudden, everyone is discussing the frozen moon. NASA is getting ready for the Artemis mission, which will spend the next 10 years filming residents of the moon in the area that is the coldest. Space travelers will have to figure out how to make useful use of the water that the moon stores while they are there. Why is the moon so important to everyone? On the moon, oil is cooked, people drink water, and plants chill in the lunar soil. Chang'e 5, the cosmic explorer, has thrown us a curveball in our dreams. The rover found an amazing finding in the little star known as the Moon: an abundance of water. The Chinese Academy of Sciences has some exciting news. While using Chang'e Feite's practice exercise, they stumbled upon a collection of tiny cups. When meteorites struck the Moon, these small pebbles were created instantly. Water-laden comets made their way to the lunar landing as well. The Moon is now receiving cold water secrets from the ice at the poles. As we're discussing the Moon's twists, scientists investigated the impacts of glass beads in more detail. They have a huge surprise in store. It was found that the beads included water storage. Even while there is very little water in each tiny pearl, when combined, it resembles moon water. These are not 1 millimeter beads. They are tiny. When you figure out how much water is in each of these tiny beads, it becomes shocking. In each rock, there are 2,000 parts of water for every million parts of water. Water can make up as much as 2,000 per ton of lunar soil. The Earth's ecology states that 1 liter of liquid water is equal to 2,000 liters of water. These glasses will get scattered during the month. Comets, asteroids, and meteors have been tearing up the Moon for thousands of years. It appears to be an unannounced river party on the Moon. As it turns out, water will exist on the Moon in all regions, from the equator to the poles. This implies that people won't have to travel all the way to the pole and cope with the ice there when they finally travel to the Moon. Alternatively, water is found practically everywhere on the Moon. The beads might enter the water by heating up. It's more science-based and takes less digging than a treasure hunt. Moon residents will always have quick access to clean water, no matter where they want to shop. Chinese scientists are working even harder to demonstrate that the water within these glistening rocks has a fascinating history. It appears to have been created by the sun. A portion of the charged hydrogen atoms from the sun seep into the glass beads and combine with the inside air, in the same way as the sun gives the Moon a small surprise. These glass beads are no longer all that's there. They lose some of their hydrogen charge when exposed to heat from the sun. They seem to be offering something for free. Approximately 298,700,000 short tons, or all the water on the Moon, are contained in the glass beads. Experts who abide by these claims that Moon dwellers are essentially perched atop a hot spring. NASA's 2010 lunar studies reveal that the North Pole holds 661,400,000 short tons of water. Everyone assumed that the Moon was drier than bones, so this is shocking. It appears he has a little party of his own. Our beautiful planet Earth has around 1.47 megatons of water on it. The collection of moons is excellent. We envision changes, either chemical or otherwise, that will turn these glassy pools into moving torrents. That won't occur though. There is virtually no pressure, no wind, no heat, and no cold on the Moon. The Moon is not expected to see significant changes very soon because of its low density and feeble magnetic field. But there have been indications of erosion that suggest liquid water once flowed on Mars. Large-scale initiatives are in motion to produce lakes and oceans that will trap greenhouse gases and melt Martian ice. Some experts, meanwhile, are not quite sold on this theory. Beyond only the mysteries of water, these glass beads reveal more. The recent JAWS finding could make Moon go insane. Special samples taken from deep strata are those that the Chinese space probe managed to get. Compared to the samples collected from orbit during the US Apollo mission, they are a millennium older. The glass beads have been burning silently for an astounding 2 billion years. Imagine tremendous collisions with comets, asteroids, and meteors that have the same power as the 68 million year old extinction of the dinosaurs. The Moon has successfully withstood these global forces despite its modest size. Scientists believe that the Moon's resilience to dust and thick composition are among the many elements that determine its life. Despite its little size, this star has seen the world through an existential crisis, and given birth to several innovations that will help us much in the future. Pearl-encrusted, as if the moon were the only remnant of the cosmos, it narrates the tale of star battle and triumphant conquest over the centuries. Chang'e Feite discovers another lunar treasure, a crystal resembling a buried diamond on the moon. It's not simply crystal. Rather, it seems as though the moon is a tiny secret composed of elements that the rest of the world is unaware of. The moonstone proved to be a game changer, leaving scientists stunned and dumbfounded when they laid eyes on it. Includes the essential components of nuclear fusion. What if the law of nuclear fusion could be broken? Worldwide energy solutions. We have been obtaining our energy from nuclear fission waves up till now. A worldwide radio crisis is the end outcome. Similar to a cosmic dance, nuclear fusion is the process by which lighter nuclei combine to generate heavier nuclei. Compared to the fission parties we keep losing, it releases more energy. For decades, there hasn't been an electric trunk. This energy fantasy is being pursued by physicists worldwide, and they are making great efforts to realize it. It is challenging to measure the pressure and energy needed to fuse these atomic components. Perhaps this moonstone holds the key to solving the enigma. Let's say we find a magical stone or a little object that wishes to unite. This is a reality check, not a fantasy. The icy phosphate minerals are called Chang'e, after the moon goddess Chang'e, who is also said to be harmful. Beijing scientists are tasked with determining if the world is ready for this nuclear power plant, which produces helium-3, that can be used for nuclear fusion. We might be in the midst of a fantastical moon mining scenario in which spacecraft return moon rocks to Earth as though they were an infinite resource. At least for a little while, our planet will finally be able to relax. In 2024, the Chang'e 6 mission will embark on another lunar treasure hunt. What fascinating patterns will they be able to photograph from the moon's western side? There will be some surprises for the globe. NASA was keeping an ear out for the exciting news that was going around. The entire United States could run on 27.6 short tons of helium-3 for a year. It would be like placing him on a space shuttle. The approximate value per short ton is $3 billion. Like a precious gem waiting to be mined, the moon might be the next great thing. Just think of the incredible boost project Artemis has been receiving for all these months. We could be seeing the emergence of a new area right in front of our eyes as the moon seems to be evolving into a celestial hotspot. Thanks for watching another episode. While you're here, you can watch more space-related video.